Have you ever imagined what your life would be like if you could disconnect from everything for a while and focus solely on yourself? In the middle of modern chaos, isolation might be the key to unlocking your true discipline. In this video, you'll discover how disappearing from the outside world could be the quickest path to inner growth and becoming extremely disciplined. During your daily routine, have you ever felt like you're always busy but never really moving forward? Like every step forward pulls you 2 steps back? It's strange, isn't it? We live in an age of endless connections, but ironically, the more connected we are to the world, the more disconnected we become from ourselves. What if I told you that the secret to breaking this cycle isn't trying to do more, but rather doing less? Less of what doesn't matter, less of what distracts you. It's about going back to the essentials. And for that, there's a path that's rarely spoken about, but extremely powerful. Isolation. Maybe when you hear that word, you think of loneliness, detachment, or being out of the game. But what if I told you that, in fact, isolation is the strategy of those who play to win? Those who can pause the world around them to focus on what truly matters. Have you ever noticed how the biggest changes happen away from the spotlight? Real growth happens in silence. When you decide to step away from the noise and chaos around you and isolate yourself, it's not to run from the world, but to master what the world won't let you see clearly. Isolating yourself isn't a sign of weakness or quitting. It's an act of courage, a conscious choice to disconnect from distractions and reconnect with what truly makes a difference. The big question is, are you willing to disappear for a while to reconnect with your vision? Think about it. In the silence of isolation, the biggest ideas take shape. And when you return to the world, you're not the same. You come back stronger, more focused, and ready to achieve what once seemed impossible. Once you choose isolation, the real work begins. It's not just about stepping away, but about what you do with that time. And here's the secret. Success isn't defined by big changes, but by the small habits you build in silence. How many times have you tried to change everything at once, only to end up right back where you started? The truth is, real progress comes from consistency, from the daily repetition of small actions that, over time, become unbreakable. Think about someone who's constantly evolving. It's not by accident, it's habit. Take the example of Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball legends. He was known for his disciplined isolation. While many were still asleep, he was already on the court, practicing relentlessly. It wasn't about big leaps of progress all at once. It was hours and hours of daily repetition, perfecting the basics. Training started at 4 a.m. when no one was watching. It was this consistency and silence that made him one of the greatest players of all time. Isolation gives you a unique opportunity to create a routine without interruptions, focused on what you truly want to achieve. Small daily steps that, when added together, build something extraordinary. Have you ever thought about what would happen if you dedicated just 1 hour each day to something that really matters? Isolation creates the space necessary for this discipline. At first it seems small, almost insignificant. But over time, these habits transform into a sure path to success. So the question is, what habits are you building in your silence? Take a moment to imagine. What would your life be like if you had total control over your routine? If, instead of rushing from one thing to another, your day flowed naturally? Seems like a distant dream? Maybe. But this dream becomes reality with one simple key. Discipline. Discipline. It's not a prison, as many imagine. In fact, it sets you free. With discipline, you turn chaos into order, confusion into clarity. When you build focused habits, everything starts to flow. You no longer live reacting to the world. You start shaping it. Look at Roger Federer, a tennis legend. Years of disciplined training not only honed his technique, but also brought balance between his career and personal life. Federer is known for his calmness and precision, even under extreme pressure. That's flow, but behind it lies the rigor of a routine built in isolation, away from the spotlight. Now imagine your own life. What if, like Federer, you could make your routine flow with that same ease? What would change if your actions were precise, calculated, and your day followed a calm rhythm? What's stopping you from starting today to cultivate that flow? Discipline doesn't mean complicating things. It's the opposite. It means simplifying, having a plan, and taking small but consistent steps. And over time, this creates a life that flows. Isolation gives you the space to build that. Have you imagined what could happen if you dedicated just 1 hour a day to something that really matters? When you take that first step, flow begins to appear. Everything seems easier, more natural. Small actions, repeated every day, create a transformation. And you? Are you ready to stop reacting to chaos and start living with purpose? The world is noisier than ever. But what are you missing amid all that noise? What could you notice if for a moment everything around you just stopped? Think about it. When was the last time you heard your own inner voice? In silence, you find more than answers. You find clarity, focus, balance. It's in that space that your best ideas emerge. And what are you letting slip by as you drown in the noise of everyday life? Think about great leaders or innovators. Steve Jobs, for example, was famous for his long, silent walks. He used this time to think, to create. It was during these solitary pauses that his biggest ideas took shape. He understood the value of silence, of disconnecting from the world to connect with himself. Just like a light bulb needs to be turned off for a while to avoid overheating, you too need those moments of silence to recharge and shine even brighter. Without those breaks, it's only a matter of time before your energy starts to run out. Imagine the impact this could have on your life. Clearer decisions, fewer doubts, more focus, and we're not talking about hours. Just a few minutes of daily silence can completely change how you see the world. What's stopping you from starting now? What are you waiting for to give yourself that time? You don't need big changes. You need small breaks, moments of silence amid the chaos. It's in those moments that you truly reconnect with who you are. And that's where the answers appear, the ones you can't find in the middle of the hustle and bustle. There are moments when external disconnection leads to deeper internal connection. When you choose isolation, something curious happens. You begin to hear yourself more clearly. Not just the surface level thoughts, but that inner voice that's always there, waiting to be heard. How many times have you felt lost, not knowing which path to take? And if I told you the answers you're looking for are already within you, just waiting for you to create space to hear them? In silence, you not only find focus, you find yourself. People like Mahatma Gandhi understood this deeply. He regularly withdrew into silence, not as an escape, but as a moment of reconnection with himself. It was during these periods of silence that his most important decisions took shape. He knew that to lead others, he first had to be at peace internally. Deep down, we are like a compass. The more noise around us, the more the needle wavers. In silence, it points back to the north. And your north? Where is it pointing? This type of isolation isn't just physical, it's a journey within. When you disconnect from the world, you create the opportunity to reconnect with who you really are. This isn't about religion or rituals, it's about listening to your own intuition, reconnecting with your values, your beliefs, your purpose. Imagine what you would discover if, every day, you took a few minutes for this kind of silence. And we're not talking about big revelations or instant epiphanies. Sometimes, it's just the feeling of peace that arises when you give yourself this time to simply be, rather than to do. The world is always asking more of you. But what if what you really need is to give less attention to everything outside and more to what's inside? The answers are there, waiting. Are you ready to listen? Sometimes, to move fast, you need to slow down. When you adopt disciplined isolation, something surprising happens. Growth accelerates. Does that sound contradictory? But it's precisely in deep focus, away from distractions, that true progress happens. Think of all the times you've tried to juggle multiple things at once, only to feel like you didn't get anywhere. Now imagine what could happen if, for a while, you focused on just one thing, with all your energy. You'd be surprised by how quickly you progress. Take the example of athlete Michael Phelps. For years, he adopted a routine of focused isolation in his training. He distanced himself from distractions and concentrated all his energy on one thing: swimming. The result? He not only broke records, he redefined what was possible in the sport. Disciplined isolation was the foundation for his accelerated growth. Like a tree that needs deep roots before it grows tall, your progress requires focus. And the deeper your roots, the faster you'll see the fruits. What does this teach us? That when you choose to temporarily isolate yourself from the noise, whether in sports, business, or personal life, you accelerate your growth in ways you might not even imagine. Because it's in the absence of distractions that you begin to see the path ahead clearly. Now think, what could you achieve if, in the coming months, you put all your energy into one single goal? What if you stopped trying to do everything at once and chose to focus on what really matters? This isn't about perfection. It's about consistent, directed progress. The big truth is that accelerated growth isn't a matter of luck. It's a matter of focus. And you have the power to create this growth in your own life. Are you ready to isolate yourself, focus, and take the next big step toward your goals? So far, we've talked about focus, isolation, and growth. But maybe you're wondering, how can I apply this to my life with the day-to-day rush, responsibilities, and commitments? Truth is, you don't need major changes to start seeing results. The key lies in small, consistent actions. You don't need to disappear from the world for months. You can start right now with subtle adjustments that create the space you need to focus on what matters. Try something simple. Every day, set aside 30 minutes to completely disconnect. Turn off your phone, close social media, step away from distractions. Use that time to focus on one single task that advances your goals, whether it's work, studies, or even something personal. Look at how Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, applies the concept of think weeks, where he isolates himself from the world to read, reflect, and plan. It's not months, but focused moments that produce revolutionary ideas. And you can adapt this to your reality. How about scheduling small reflection weeks into your calendar? Maybe not a full week, but how about an hour a day? Just like a drop of water, which may seem insignificant on its own, but when falling repeatedly carves through even the hardest rock, your small, consistent actions have the power to transform your life. The secret isn't in the amount of time, but in its quality. The question you should ask yourself isn't, how much time do I have? But rather, how am I using the time I have? That's where the real difference lies. Start small, but start today. It could be 10 minutes to isolate yourself from the noise and focus on a goal, or it could be an hour. What matters is consistency. One step at a time, and soon you'll see the impact that these simple changes can have. Time isn't going to stop for you, but you can choose how to use it. Imagine what could happen if, starting today, you began applying this strategy with discipline. Small changes, big results. Everything you've heard so far will only make a difference if you act. True growth begins when you turn ideas into action. Think about it. Where could you be a year from now if you applied these small changes day after day? How many times have you waited for the perfect moment? What if it never comes? Maybe the best time is right now. The choice is in your hands. Disconnect from the noise. Connect with what really matters. Transformation begins with a small step. And what are you waiting for to take yours? Share your vision in the comments and subscribe, because your next achievement is just around the corner. Keep watching this next video on the channel to keep developing yourself. We'll see you there.